All right, get ready for a deep dive that might just turn everything you think you know about mental illness upside down.
We're going beyond the usual explanations.
Yeah, this is going to be a fascinating one. We're exploring the spiritist perspective on mental illness.
Or what some might even call, madness.
Exactly. And we're going to be drawing on some incredible accounts from the GFE, Irmão Bezerra de Menezes' YouTube channel.
You know, get ready for some stories of spiritual healing. We're going to talk about past lives.
Oh, and don't forget the broom therapy. That's a new one for
And
me.
definitely unique. And we're even going to touch on an encounter with a spirit who hasn't seen tears in ages.
I'm already hooked. So how does Spiritism view mental illness differently from, like, the traditional medical model?
Well, it really goes beyond just the physical brain. The source material we're looking at suggests that mental illness can stem from a bunch of things like past life traumas.
Past lives. Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
And then there's negative energy attachments, what they call obsession in Spiritism.
So it's like we're carrying baggage from one life to the next.
Kinda, but it's not just our own baggage. Sometimes it's external energies, that we're dealing with.
That's heavy.
It is. And it's not just past lives and energy. It's also the accumulation of, harmful thoughts and actions.
So our thoughts and actions actually have a real impact on our mental state.
Big time. It's all interconnected.
It makes you wonder, like, how much our everyday thoughts and emotions are actually shaping our mental well-being.
It's a lot more than we probably realize. The source material really stresses the importance of what they call cleaning our mental houses.
Mental house cleaning, I like that.
Yeah, it's like a mental detox, right? Preventing negativity from taking root.
So what does that look like in practice? Are we talking about meditation, therapy?
It can be those things, but it's also about cultivating positive thoughts and intentions. And there's evidence this approach works. Dr. Inácio Ferreira, a psychiatrist who worked in a spiritist sanatorium in Brazil, had a really high success rate in treating cases of what they call obsession.
Hold on. A spiritist sanatorium. That sounds fascinating.
It was. And his story gets even more interesting. He actually continued his work in a spirit hospital after he passed away.
Wait, so he kept on healing even after death?
Yep. It's mind-blowing. He believed in treating both the physical and spiritual aspects of mental illness. Like, he really recognized that the soul is just as important as the body.
That's a powerful concept.
It is. And speaking of powerful, Dr. Ferreira was a big believer in broom therapy.
Okay, you got to tell me more about this broom therapy. What is that?
He basically encouraged his patients to literally clean their surroundings, not just for hygiene, but as a way to, sweep away negative energy.
So it's symbolic.
Totally. It's about creating a sense of order and peace, both in your environment and within yourself.
I love that. It's making me think about what I might need to clean in my own life,
Right. It can be a powerful metaphor. And on the topic of Dr. Ferreira and the spirit hospital, there's this heartwarming story about a little kitten and a dog who found solace in the spirit animal hospital, Francisco de Assis. They are rescued from some pretty rough situations. It really shows that this compassionate care isn't just for humans.
That's for all beings, huh? That's beautiful.
It is. It speaks to the interconnectedness of all life. But there's also a story that's a bit more, it deals with the consequences of actions, and it's the story of the lumber baron. Have you heard of that?
I think so. It's about karma, right? The idea that our actions in this life can impact our next life.
Exactly. This lumber baron, when he died, was held accountable in the spirit world for all the environmental damage he caused during his life.
Wow.
Yeah, he was sentenced to 100 years in the spiritual realm and tasked with, get this, reforestation as part of his atonement.
It's a powerful reminder that our choices matter.
Huge reminder. It really highlights the importance of taking responsibility for our actions.
And the potential for redemption, even after death.
Exactly. But to really understand just how vast the spirit world is, we need to talk about Dr. Ferreira's journey in a spirit spaceship to another dimension.
Wait, a spirit spaceship? Seriously?
Yeah, he actually encountered a being who had never even lived on Earth.
Wow, that's wild. What was that encounter like?
It was really moving. At one point, Dr. Ferreira got teary-eyed talking about Chico Xavier, who was a famous spiritist medium.
Huh?
And the other being, they collected his tears and treated them like a precious treasure.
Tears as a treasure. That's a really beautiful image.
Isn't it? They even created a jewel from those tears, representing the deep meaning of human emotion.
It's amazing how something we might take for granted here on Earth can hold such profound significance in other realms.
Right. It speaks to the power of emotions, even across different dimensions.
So what happened to Dr. Ferreira after this interdimensional adventure?
He decided to work at the spirit hospital associated with the GFE Imam Bezerra de Menezes.
He chose to keep on healing.
He did, but he had two conditions. He wanted his cat with him.
His cat. He brought his cat to the spirit world.
He did. And he also wanted his collection of classical music CDs.
I love that. So even in the spirit world, we still have our passions and attachments.
It seems that way. And music, is believed to have healing properties in Spiritism.
That makes sense. Music can be so powerful.
Absolutely. And there's a touching story about a troubled spirit named Lenar who received a broom, a symbol of hope and a chance to help others by cleaning.
Broom therapy strikes again. So even in the spirit world, they're using it for healing and empowerment.
It's incredible, right?
This whole deep dive is blowing my mind. I can't wait to see what other insights await us in part 2.
Buckle up. We're just getting started. Welcome back. Before we move on, I just keep thinking about that idea of how our thoughts and actions can impact us beyond this life.
Pretty intense, right?
It really makes you think. It's like Spiritism is saying we need to take a long, hard look at how we're living right now.
Yeah, it challenges us to be more mindful, more aware of the consequences of our choices.
Absolutely. And it ties into this fascinating practice called fluidotherapy that I wanted to talk about.
Fluidotherapy. Okay. Spill the tea. What is it exactly?
Well, it involves using water. But hold on, it's not just any water. It's like specially energized water.
Energized water. How does that work?
It's water that's been, infused with positive energy and intention through prayer and other spiritual practices.
So it's like spiritually charged water.
You could say that. It's thought to bring harmony to both the body and spirit.
Interesting. So how is it used? Do you just, drink it?
Sometimes, yeah, like a spiritual remedy, but it can also be used for bathing or even applied to the skin.
I can see how a bath in spiritually energized water could be pretty relaxing.
People say it brings a sense of peace and renewal. It's like the energy of the water's working on you on a subtle level.
So it's not just about the water itself, but the intention and energy behind it.
Exactly. It's like with crystals or aromatherapy, right? It's about harnessing unseen energies for healing and well-being.
Right. I've heard of those.
And, belief is a big part of it, too. The more you believe in the power of fluidotherapy, the more effective it seems to be.
It's like the power of suggestion, almost.
In a way, yes. But Spiritism takes it further. They believe our thoughts are so powerful, they can actually attract or repel spiritual entities, both good and bad.
Whoa, okay.
Hmm.
So it's not just about our internal state, but also the energies around us.
Exactly. It's like we're constantly interacting with a whole unseen world, and the more positive energy we cultivate, the stronger our spiritual defenses become.
It's like building up our spiritual immunity, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And, all this talk about thought and energy, it's not just a mystical belief.
Right.
There's actually growing research in fields like quantum physics that suggests our thoughts can have a measurable impact on the world around us.
So science might be catching up to what Spiritism has been saying all along.
It's starting to, yeah. And even if we don't fully understand how it all works, the anecdotal evidence from people experiencing healing through these practices is pretty compelling.
It's a good reminder to be open-minded, right?
Yes.
There's still so much we don't know.
For sure. And this whole conversation, it's really making me question how we define mental illness and what true healing really means.
Me too. It's not just about treating symptoms. It's about addressing the whole person. Mind, body, and spirit.
Exactly. And that holistic approach is at the heart of the Spiritist perspective, even when it comes to the afterlife.
Oh, right. We haven't even touched on what happens after death, according to Spiritism.
Well, they believe our spirits continue to evolve and progress in the spiritual realm.
So it's like life after death is just another stage of our journey.
It is, but they believe our experiences there are influenced by our actions and thoughts from this life.
So what we do here matters, even after we're gone.
It really does. And even though our emotions don't just disappear when we die, Spiritists believe that eventually we come to understand the lessons behind our experiences, leading us towards greater peace and wisdom.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is, but there's still so much more to unpack.
Like what happens in part 3.
Well, in part 3, we'll dive into some real-life examples of how these Spiritist principles are put into action, like how they approach specific mental health challenges.
Okay, I'm definitely ready for part 3. All right, so we've talked about the theory, but now I'm curious to see how this all plays out in the real world. How do these Spiritist principles actually get used to help people?
That's the key question, right? It's one thing to talk about it, but how does it actually work?
Right, like do they completely reject traditional medicine?
No, no, not at all.
Okay.
They actually see spiritual healing as working alongside conventional treatments. It's a complementary approach.
So it's not an either situation.
Yeah,
More like a both hand.
exactly. They definitely see the value in addressing the physical and psychological aspects of mental illness,
Right, of course.
but they also believe that the spiritual side can't be ignored.
Makes sense. So how would that work in practice? Like, say someone is struggling with anxiety or depression.
Okay, so alongside therapy or medication, a spiritist might encourage things like prayer and meditation, maybe even attending spiritual gatherings.
To build a sense of connection and support.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds a bit like what we might call mindfulness or self-care in a more secular context.
Yeah, there are definitely overlaps there. But I think the key difference with the spiritist approach is that emphasis on connecting with a higher power, cultivating a sense of spiritual purpose.
So it's not just about managing symptoms, it's about finding a deeper meaning and purpose.
Right. It's about addressing what they believe is the spiritual root of the problem.
I see. So it's empowering the individual to work on their spiritual growth, to
Yeah.
become more resilient to these mental and emotional challenges.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's not all about solo effort either. Community plays a big role too.
Right, that makes sense. Having a strong support network is so important.
Absolutely. And speaking of different challenges, we've been talking a lot about things like anxiety and depression, but what about more severe conditions?
Yeah, what about things like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder? How does Spiritism approach those?
That's where that concept of obsession often comes in.
Right, that idea of negative spiritual attachments.
Exactly. They believe that in some cases, these conditions could be influenced by those negative energies or, unresolved issues from past lives.
So it's not about blaming the individual, but recognizing that there could be other forces at play.
Exactly. There's a lot of compassion in their approach,
Wait.
recognizing that the person might not have complete control over their thoughts and actions. It's a nuanced perspective, without the stigma.
It sounds like they wouldn't necessarily rely solely on spiritual methods either, right?
You're right. They would still very much encourage traditional medical treatment and therapy, but they would offer spiritual guidance and support alongside those things. It's about that holistic approach we talked about.
It's fascinating to think about, if we were more open to these spiritual insights, could it revolutionize how we understand and treat mental illness?
There's definitely potential there. The more we learn about this interconnectedness between the mind, body, and spirit, the more effective our approaches to mental health could become.
It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
It has. I hope it's encouraged you to think a little differently about things, maybe even explore your own spirituality a bit.
Or at least to approach mental health with a more holistic lens, right?
Exactly. And remember, this is just one perspective on a really complex topic.
Right. Always more to learn.
Always more to explore, always more to ponder.
Well said. So keep those minds open, fellow deep divers. And until next time, may your thoughts be kind, your actions compassionate, and your journeys filled with amazing discoveries.